I'd like to ask you how you first came into contact with the Vanhaerents family back over there in Belgium.
Well, I initially knew of, I met Walter Vanhaerents, who is in fact known to the gallery here that we're sitting in, White Cube, as an important collector of contemporary art. Got a message to say that the company were expanding their headquarters. Would I be interested in somehow visiting the headquarters and what was then a building site, looking to perhaps install a piece of work which would have been a commission specifically for this new building.
And could you tell us something about these two works that you made?
There are two works that somehow are in relation to each other, and they're installed in the entrance space to the offices, and in the entrance space there's a kind of void that cuts through from the ground floor to the first floor, and I suppose I was interested in presenting something as people enter into the building, perhaps for the very first time. Then the two works reference two moments in architecture, if you like. One is a text, a white neon text, which runs across the base of a balcony space, which is in the center of this void. And that text refers to an incidence, I should say, in the house of Luis Barragan, famous Mexican modernist architect. And so I took a photograph in his living room of a glass ornament which was placed on the windowsill, which looks out onto this absolutely lush tropical garden. Now, on looking at the photograph when I came back to London, I became very interested in what happens in the, well, just generally what happens in the reflection of this glass vase, because it inverts, optically it inverts the shape of the garden. Somehow the idea then of just taking this strain, this sentence which describes this small miracle that happens on the threshold of a windowsill in Mexico City, and somehow transplant that, bring a sort of evocation of that into the office space at Torhout. This interacts with a piece which is suspended from the ceiling, which really references the work of American legendary architect and engineer Buckminster Fuller. He's enormously influential architect, particularly coming up with various restructurings of certain engineering concepts in order to look at various natural organic forms and how it might be possible to actually kind of apply those synthetically to architecture and building forms. That form very roughly delineates the outline of what is known as a Dymaxion map, which we don't have time to really go into any detail about talking here, but essentially then it's a kind of reconfiguring of the globe, which is another sphere, as a flat plane. So there's a kind of pun, not a pun, there's a kind of play between the two pieces that are Barragan and Buckminster Fuller, two legends of 20th century architecture and design, somehow meet in this lobby.
How do you see these two works that you've put into the void?
One resonates off the other in a sense. Not only does the building physically offer the opportunity for that to exist through reflection, in that they're both made of white neon, so they literally bounce off each other through the various reflections that the first story balcony provides. On a metaphorical level, they also attempt to do that. I also feel that they do that because you have something that belongs to world of Louis Barragan interacting with something that belongs to the world of Buckminster Fuller. People who visit the offices for the first time will be confronted by these pieces for the first time, so seeing something for the second time is very, very different than seeing it for the first. So it enters into this kind of temporal dimension also. The relationships constantly evolve and change.
Nowadays there's this buzzword that architecture is art. What is architecture and what is art? I think it's a very personal thing that it is for each person. But what is your feeling about it? Is architecture art?
Well, the interesting thing is the question, I suppose, because again, this relationship has always been one, on occasion, almost antagonistic, and on so many other occasions, then they are absolutely natural partners, if you like. There are aspects of my art production that are explicitly involved with aspects of architectural production. Notions of the interrogation of certain forms of space, for instance. Temporality and built structures, how people use them, what the various zones are within a certain given structure. So really, I think the answer is probably rather banal. It's life is the connection between art and architecture, you know, the lived experience. Essentially, they have much in common. There are concerns, and what perhaps becomes a valuable point of departure at the beginning of the 20th century then is this kind of form of hybridity, the hybrid form between art and architecture.